email it over once we're finished here. So if anybody needs to reference back to it, you can. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the OnePacs website. So once you push your studies over to us, you'll go to ts.onepacs.com. Let me make sure I'm recording this. Give me 1 second. Okay. So each person at your facility will have their own user ID and password. So you would enter that right here, and then you want to log in. So what you're going to see here is all your studies that you pushed over to us, and then they're ready to be read by the radiologist. So what you want to do is confirm the study. So for instance, in this first study here, we would go to the question mark, and you're going to click on the question mark. And then at the top here, all of the patient information will populate. And then here you would select whether this is a stat or not. We do ask that you only send true stats and not marking it stat just to get it back early. And then you would enter the detailed history here and any preliminary findings by the provider. Under the study information is your study type. So basically this is telling us what it is you sent us. So we would select it's the chest x-ray and click done. Next to that is the laterality. And then you're gonna select from the down drop the amount of views that you're sending. We do ask that you only send one body part per study. So if you were sending an ankle and a knee, we ask that they're sent in separate studies. Down here is the ordering physician box. So since you're first starting with us, this is going to be blank, but you can build out that list. You would click on the add button and enter the physician's first and last name. If you're using an internal ID system, you can enter that here. And then the phone number. And then if the provider wants an email when the report is ready, you can enter that here as well. So once you build out the list, it'll be available for anyone sending a study, so you don't have to enter it each time. So you would just select whichever position it is, and then it would highlight. And then the last thing you do under comparison studies is select from one of these options here. And then down at the bottom, you go to confirm for interpretation. So that study is now ready to be reported on. It's sent to the radiologist, and it appears as a green check mark. So this pelvis study is an example of a study that was already read by the radiologist. So you see a blue check mark here, and the report's complete. And next to the check mark is the report. So you can click on to the report, and then in the upper left-hand corner here, you can export it to a PDF, or you can print it out. Did you have any questions on confirming the study? Okay.
So when you're entering in a physician, do you have to fill out the whole thing entirely, or is just the name appropriate?
Right, the only required information is the name and phone number.
Okay.
Okay. Next to the stat indicator button is the study notes, or we call it the notepad. This is used for communicating between the Solution Center and your team. So if we were missing images, or they were wanting more history, you would see that that note appear here. You can also add your own note. So you would click on the notepad and go to create a new note. And then whatever information you wanted to type here, you can do that. And then save and close. So then that note will appear on the notepad. Other ways to communicate with the team is our 888 number. It's always here at the top of your work list. Or you can go to our website, xperityhealth.com/teleradiology. And down at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a chat feature. and it is secure and HIPAA compliant. So if you needed to speak about a patient information, you can do that there. It is a real person that you're talking to on that, either by calling or by chatting in real time. So next to the notepad feature is the quick image preview. You can hover over it and see the images, or you can click on it and it'll show you thumbnails of the images. Next to that is the patient history folder. So any studies that have been read for that patient will appear here. Next to that is the study files. So if you ever needed to attach a report or a text sheet, you can do that from here. You just click on it and then file and then add. And then that'll attach it to that patient file. And then next to that is the web viewer. This is the OnePacs web viewer. Are you able to see that on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I had was having problems with that before, but okay. So at the top here is all of your tools. You can set your mouse buttons. You can format from within here. Along the side here will appear any priors associated with that patient. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, you can set preferences as well. The other viewer we have, it's right-click view, and we have a remote eye viewer. And that takes a second to load, but I can show it to you. Here it is. Sorry, I'm trying to put it over here. So this is the Java viewer, same thing as diagnostic quality. You do have your mouse buttons here at the top. We do use this sometimes. The facilities will use it as a backup for burning a CD. So in the upper left-hand corner, there's an upward-facing arrow. You would just click on it and go down to burn CD, DVD locally, and you can do that from within here. Okay, and then the other feature we have is the case link share. So if you ever needed to share the report or images with a patient or an outside provider, you would go right-click, share, and create a case link. You can set an expiration date, add any notes, and then for security, you can create your own password and share that with the patient or outside provider. You could require them to have a OnePacs password or username, or you can anonymize the case. And then you would enter the email address and any message you wanted to attach to it. So once you hit create, it'll send this link to their email, and then they can click through, use that temporary password, and be able to view the images or the report. If you're ever sending us comparison studies, say the patient brought in a prior study, or you have images that you want compared, say you took images of the left wrist and you wanted to compare to the right wrist, but you're not necessarily looking for a report, you would click on the question mark and then go down to the study is for comparison. And then that way we know it's just, you're not looking for a report, but it's to be used as a comparison. The other things that you can do within here is change your columns. You can move them however you want your work list to appear. All of these drop down. So if you wanted to change the information that's appearing on the work list, you can do that here. These also drop down. So if you're sorting and looking for certain patient information, you can do that here. And you can also change your time frame as well. I believe by default it sets to 20 studies on the work list at a time, but you can change that all the way to 500. So if you wanted to save this layout and every time you log in, you want it to appear that way, you would go to the layout and then save the work list layout. We do have this export option as well. So if you're doing an internal audit, say you're wanting to run a report on patients in the last 30 days or sorting by certain information, and you want to print it out, you would just go to the export button and then it'll save it to an Excel spreadsheet for you. Any questions on confirming the study, communicating with us, sending back a reread? Okay, pretty much.
So if you wanted to do, a comparison study from the old system, would you have to upload those images?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, if you didn't have any other questions, then I can show you how to manage and create accounts. I'm not sure if we got the email back yet on who was going to do that, but once we do, I can set it up. But you would go to admin and users. And then once the users are created, they will appear here. So if you needed to change any information on that user, you can right click on their name, edit, you can change their password, or you can deactivate them. You can do a deactivation now, or you can schedule it out if you know when they were leaving. If you want to create a user, you go down to the bottom left, click on add, and then you can create a username and then enter their first and last name. Each user will have their own unique email address. So for facility manager, their permissions are going to be set to facility manager with case access link and note access. If you needed to add any permissions over, so you wanted them to be able to create case links or export data, you just double click and it'll add it to their permissions. So anyone else that's not creating accounts or managing the accounts would be set as the user under user type. And then we suggest you choose the permissions of tech with case access link and note access. So again, here, if you wanted them to be able to export data, you just double click and it'll add it to their permissions. And then you just go down to the bottom here and click save. And then they'll get an email to that address that you created, and they'll get an email to click through and log into their OnePacs. Okay. If there wasn't any other questions, I can go ahead and send you the documentation and then this recording as well.